guys, and welcome to today's instructional video. Today we're going to be talking about character arcs and how characters change or respond as the plot ends up moving towards a resolution. When we're talking about a character arc, we are referring to how a character changes over the course of a narrative. And remember, a narrative is just a story within a book, memoir, movie, short film, poem, whatever. And the question that we really want to ask ourselves is how we got to that point. At the beginning of a story during the exposition, we sort of learn a lot about what the character's life has been like up till now, what their normal looks like, right? But over the course of the story, as the plot thickens, they encounter obstacles that change who they are, that force them to grow. And eventually, by the time we've reached the resolution of a plot, our characters usually have gone through a realization and they have a new normal, a new version of themselves that has come to be. So, for example, if we look at Anakin Skywalker from the Star Wars prequels, when we first meet Anakin, he is this little boy. He is super adorable. He's sweet. He's adventurous. He's warm. And he has all of this potential, right? He's got the highest midichlorian count of sort of how much power he could have. He's a talented little racer. He's passionate. He's bright. There's sort of no end to his potential. But by the end of the prequels, Anakin is a person who is willing to murder other children, who is wasted all of that potential and is now evil, who kills his wife, who is definitely not racing those little speeders anymore. He's cold, he's unloving, he's domineering, and there is nothing that he will allow to stand between himself and power. So what we want to look at is how we got to that point.
I don't want things to change.
But you can't stop the change.
What obstacles did Anakin encounter that caused him to change like that? So, when Anakin becomes a Jedi and he becomes frustrated with politics, we start to see him become a little discontented with the expectations other people have of him as a Jedi. And as we move forward, when Anakin falls in love with Padme and she becomes pregnant, he has even more to lose. There's more to be nervous about. And when Anakin has nightmares about losing Padme, he becomes stressed out about keeping this secret life away from the other Jedi, away from his mentor and closest friend. We could infer that that adds a lot of stress, right? That might make his decision-making less rational. And when Anakin doesn't become a Jedi Master, despite working so hard towards it, he becomes angry. All of this sort of leads to a climax where Anakin's fellow Jedi, a Jedi Master in fact, decides that it's better to kill the bad guy instead of doing the right thing, instead of bringing him to court for a trial. And so Anakin's beliefs completely crumble in the face of a really big decision. The Jedi means nothing. And so he saves the bad guy, who of course immediately murders the Jedi Master. And now Anakin is an accomplice. So what else is there for Anakin to do but succumb to what he seems to be, to the side that he has helped most recently? And so all of those obstacles, all of those events throughout the plot of the Star Wars prequels leads to Anakin becoming Darth Vader. And no longer is he a Jedi. He is a Sith, not quite a Lord, but he's a Sith. Now, for anyone who's a fan of The Good Place, you might have all heard of Eleanor Shellstrop. Now, at the beginning of The Good Place, Eleanor is honestly, she describes herself as an Arizona dirtbag. She's selfish, she's self-centered, she's super rude.
You basic.
She doesn't care about literally anyone but herself. And part of that is that she is angry at the world and she hates herself, but she's gonna bury that insecurity beneath defensiveness, beneath rudeness, beneath selfishness. But at the end of The Good Place, if we fast forward through her character arc, Eleanor is a person who loves and is willing to sacrifice herself for her friends and for her soulmate. She is a person who is willing to forgive the imperfect people who have hurt her in the past, and she's trying to learn what she owes others in terms of kindness. So again, the question is, how did we get there? How did Eleanor change so much over the course of The Good Place? Ask yourself what happened before she changed. Well, when Eleanor goes into the good place and is the only not perfect person there, she begins to try to fit in with the good people. She's trying to emulate the good things they do. Now, of course, Eleanor finds and she slowly befriends other people who aren't perfect either. And one of those is a professor of ethics named Chidi. And through him, she begins to learn about how we should treat others. And of course, as Eleanor continues to move throughout the good place and encounter obstacles and try to keep the fact that she doesn't belong there secret, she has a front row seat to see how her actions impact others. So she learns empathy and compassion. And of course, when she eventually falls in love with Chidi, she begins to care about another person in a way she hasn't before. So of course, this ends up with her discovering that she and her friends are actually in the bad place. And shockingly enough, she wants to save not only herself, but also them. So from the beginning to the end, Eleanor has become a person who is concerned with her friends' well-being and who cares for others. Now, when we really want to boil character arcs down, it follows a pretty basic formula. A character wants something, they face obstacles, and consequently, the character learns what they need and changes. So when we look at this, it's character plus obstacles equals growth. Just like in real life, just like how before I ran a marathon, I did not think that I could do something like that. I have faced the obstacle of running 26.2 miles in the rain and in the snow. And I learned by the end of it that I had a lot more grit than I used to. Now, when we're looking at plots, to make something a compelling story, we really do need a transformation. And sometimes that's not necessarily in the form of the character, but in the world around them. I want to show you this quote from Khan Academy. It says, when we watch movies where the characters achieve something just like by walking through a door, it doesn't feel authentic. In fact, we don't think that the character deserves it. We want them to work for it because we also know that if you get something for practically nothing, you don't value it. And we can see a beautiful example of this in Inside Out by Disney Pixar. So at the beginning of the movie, Joy's desire is that she wants Riley to be happy literally all the time. Everything she does is in pursuit of this goal. And the major obstacle that Joy faces is that the core memories and joy and sadness themselves are lost, perhaps forever. And by the end, after facing that obstacle, Joy realizes that the only reason Riley was ever really happy is because she also had those moments of sadness, and that Riley is actually much better off with all of her emotions. That is all I have for you in terms of character arcs. Remember, we are focusing on how a character changes. And some of the easiest ways to see that is when they respond to a situation differently than they would have at the beginning. All right, you can go ahead and move on to your next lesson.